Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I'm Katie, 32F, and I've always been a pushover who tries too hard to please people. I've worked in marketing for over 12 years now. Throughout my career, I've had a mix of good bosses, mediocre ones, and some real nightmares. But there's one that stands out as the absolute worst. This story is from about 3 years ago. Jenna, late 40s, was the vice president of marketing and sales at a medium-sized retail chain. She joined the company a couple of years after I did. Rumor had it that she was the fourth choice for the position and only got hired to appease the shareholders. I was a manager under her, and my job was to ensure that the website and stores had their products merchandised correctly, received all their monthly sales materials, managed advertising, set up and managed the department's budget, oversaw all department projects and operations, created sales reports, managed presentations and creative briefs for future projects, etc. Basically, I did her work and all the administrative grunt work to keep the department running smoothly. I managed all this because I had access to her email, and I often sent emails on her behalf to keep things functioning. Jenna spent most of her time rolling in after 10 a.m., taking business lunches and planning company parties. I still don't know why we had those, but I planned them too. I constantly questioned why she blew so much of our budget on these events when we didn't have the resources for any of it. Jenna told me to take from future months' budgets to cover the current month's overspending. So, at the start of every month, I had an original budget, and by the end of the month, I had to turn in an edited budget, edited under Jenna's direction, that made it look like Jenna's spending was under control. This is important for later. I definitely made mistakes here and there, being in charge of so many tasks, and I constantly found myself working 12-hour days, split between being in the office and working after my kid went to bed. I also had to work on weekends before my family woke up and after they went to bed. During Jenna's first major holiday season, sales were abysmal. Jenna kept changing her mind on the visuals for the stores, kept bringing on new advertising and PR agencies to boost sales. All these agencies were run by her personal friends, and ignored our buying merchandise team's planned promotions for her own better ones. At this time, I had been dealing with an ongoing infection that turned into sepsis, and I was hospitalized. The doctors and my husband said it was due to the stress of work and that I needed to take a break. As I recovered, I realized how much I was hurting myself, my family, and even the company I worked for. Eventually, my old habits got the best of me, and I got on my phone and checked my and my boss's emails. What I found made my blood boil. First, I got a lovely bouquet of flowers from upper management wishing me well, and I knew that Jenna had organized the delivery. She sent me her favorite flowers. I went to her inbox to file the receipt in the correct folder to send to accounting when I got back. At the top of her inbox from the past 3 days were emails clearly not related to business. What I found in her emails was Jenna emailing her personal friends complaining about how I can't just shake off sepsis and get back to work. She also complained that she couldn't find any of my notes, spreadsheets, or documents for any of the work she was technically in charge of. They were clearly labeled on our shared drive. Finally, I found an email where she sent a friend from a previous company asking for advice on how to bring in sales and save her job. In this long email thread, this old colleague asked if there was anyone managing most of the work, and of course, Jenna said I was. This colleague explained that clearly it was my mismanagement that was causing issues, and that I could be blamed if sales didn't pull through by the end of the season. Jenna mentioned that I was in the hospital and repeated comments from her other email thread. This person said that she couldn't outright fire me because it could seem like retaliation since I needed to take emergency medical leave. But if Jenna could prove I was stealing from the company or misusing company resources, then she would have grounds to have me fired and use me as a scapegoat. Upon my return, Jenna called me into her office and said, "I'm worried you're taking on too much," and wanted to take work off my plate. She announced she was taking over managing the department budget. She asked me to only drop off a small stack of invoices to accounting. Additionally, Jenna told me, under no circumstances are you allowed to talk to accounting about anything regarding budgets. Also, if you have any concerns about the department or workload, you're not allowed to go to HR. You have to discuss it directly with me. Oh yeah, I could see where this was going. Unfortunately for Jenna, I had built a rapport with Lois, early 60s, who was our main accountant. Lois had always said that she would do everything in her power to help me should I ask. Knowing this, I grabbed the stack of invoices off Jenna's desk to give to accounting. I also added the email threads I read while I was in the hospital, and the current unedited budget that Jenna hadn't touched yet for the month. I also found in my filing cabinet the hard copies of old budgets with Jenna's handwriting on what numbers to change to balance our budget. Finally, I added an email from our first round of budget adjustments where Jenna subtly threatened to put someone else in my job if I couldn't do what she asked. So, I walked and dropped off the invoices to accounting when I bumped into Lois. She brought up the invoices, and I sternly looked at her and said, "Jenna is the only one in our department that you're allowed to talk to about our budget and invoices." Lois saw the suspiciously thick file folder on her desk, gave a firm nod, and lovingly kicked me out of her office. Within the week, Jenna was fired. From what I understand, she has been continually job hopping for the past few years. The CEO and HR brought me in to personally apologize for everything I went through and gave me a paid 1-week vacation to take at my discretion. Given other issues with this business, I left after another year, which brings me to today. I am, once again, a manager for sales and marketing. I have a wonderful boss, Ryan, late 40s M, who trusts my business decisions and backs me up on practically everything. We are hiring my team for me to solely manage and direct. Today I looked through the applicants and found Jenna's resume sitting among dozens of others. I stared at her name, wondering how many other people share her name. Upon review, yep, it's her. She definitely fell down the corporate ladder, with VP of our old company being the highest title she earned. And to no surprise, she embellished her achievements, claiming the work I managed as her own, and claimed she generated an 87% sales growth during the holiday season at our previous company. As someone who has always been a people pleaser and firmly believes in giving everyone a chance, it has never been so satisfying to click disqualified. The next one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my townhouse community for over 5 years now and really love it here. The homes are nice and well maintained, the neighbors are friendly, and the homeowner association keeps everything looking neat. There's a shared parking lot for all the residents with spaces clearly marked for each unit. Well, about 6 months ago, this new guy moved into the unit across from me. Right away, I could tell he was going to be trouble. He blasted loud music at all hours and revved up a huge, loud motorcycle in the parking lot. Definitely not the typical homeowner here. A few weeks after he moved in, I started noticing his huge Semitruck parked in the lot, taking up 6 spaces. Our homeowner association rules clearly prohibit commercial vehicles, so I figured it was only a matter of time before he'd have to move it. But day after day, that truck just sat there, making it harder for other residents to find parking near their units. Finally, after a week of this, I decided to politely ask him to move his truck. I knocked on his door on a Saturday morning. "Hey man, just wanted to give you a heads up that we're not allowed to park commercial vehicles in the resident spots. Could you move the truck to an off-site lot or something? It's making parking tough for the rest of us," I said nicely. He got real defensive right away. "Listen, I park where I want. I pay to live here just like anyone else. There's no law against me parking here," he yelled angrily. I tried explaining that it was against our homeowner association covenants, but he just slammed the door in my face. Real friendly guy. I'd hoped he would cool off and move it, but the truck stayed put. Over the next few days, I noticed more and more residents struggling to find parking, having to park way at the back of the lot thanks to this guy's huge truck taking up so much space. I wasn't the only one getting annoyed. Finally, at our monthly homeowner association board meeting, I brought up the issue, and several others chimed in. They had gotten into it with the new neighbor too, and were fed up. Our homeowner association president said he would send a formal notice about the violation. Just 2 days later, I got a call from the homeowner association president. He told me they had sent 3 notices to the truck owner over the past week, but he was refusing to comply. At this point, they were going to levy a fine against him for the covenant violation. I attended the next homeowner association board meeting, where they held a vote on the fine amount. After reviewing past violations, they landed on a whopping $1,000 per week that the truck remained parked on site. I have to say, it felt pretty satisfying knowing this selfish jerk would now have to pay up. The next morning, I immediately noticed the giant truck was gone. Ha! The threat of major fines finally got through to him. But the victory was short-lived. The very next day, the truck was back in its same spot, taking up 6 spaces. Over the next few weeks, the homeowner association sent violation notices every week, assessing the $1,000 fine each time. After 4 weeks, the fines had reached $4,000, but the neighbor kept refusing to pay and insisted on parking his truck there. Finally, the homeowner association decided to turn the matter over to a lawyer and take legal action. Our homeowner association fees helped pay for the legal costs, and I was more than happy to see this go to court. After reviewing our covenants and violation records, the homeowner association's lawyer determined we had a solid case. Since the resident had been notified multiple times but continued to violate the rules, the lawyer filed paperwork to place a lien on his townhouse for the unpaid fines. A few days after receiving the lien notice in the mail, I looked out my window to see a tow truck in the parking lot. The stubborn neighbor's truck was finally being towed away, much to the happiness of surrounding residents. The neighbor got home while his truck was mid-tow and ran out freaking out. The tow driver showed him the paperwork from the homeowner association lawyer authorizing the tow. He called the police trying to claim the homeowner association was stealing his truck, but after the police reviewed the homeowner association covenants and violation records, they told him it was a valid tow and legal action by the homeowner association. Ever since his precious truck got impounded, the loudmouth neighbor has kept his head down. No more crazy parties or noise complaints like before. And he's stuck paying those massive fines, or the unpaid amounts will be taken from the sale of his home if he tries to move. I'm proud of our homeowner association for standing their ground against this jerk. It just goes to show, you can't keep violating the rules forever without consequences. We can finally park in peace again. The next one is a petty revenge story. 20 plus years ago, my wife and I bought a grill from Home Depot. We happened to go to one that was a few miles from our house, even though there was one closer. Got it home. My wife was super excited as it was a really big purchase for us at the time. The next day I am at home putting it together, and when I get to the stand, it's just not working. It takes me a bit, but I realize there is definitely something wrong with the stand. So I call the Home Depot closest to me to see if, instead of taking the entire grill apart to put it back in the box, I can just return the stand. I'm put on hold for a long time. So long I call from her cell and ask if they are aware they have had someone waiting on hold for X amount of time. I want to say 30 minutes, but not sure. They transfer me to someone in outdoors. I explain the situation and ask if I can just swap out the stand. He tells me no. Keep in mind I still have the receipt and just bought this less than 24 hours earlier from another Home Depot. I nicely ask to speak to a manager because I realize he probably doesn't have the authority to say yes. Not his fault. Manager gets on the phone and I explain everything, including the wait on hold. Nope, I have to bring in the entire grill. At this point, I am upset. Mostly because my wife is crying. I don't know why, and 20 plus years later I still don't know why she was crying over this, but she did. This, I don't take lightly. So, I tell the manager, okay, if that's what I need to do, I will. However, I am an electrician and am self-employed. I buy most of my materials at Home Depot. I'm small, so it's probably around $100,000 a year in sales. Drop in the bucket for Home Depot. And I don't make empty promises, so I'm not going to tell him that I won't ever shop there again. But I do promise you that I won't spend a dime there for at least a year. He says that he is sorry and wishes there was something he could do to change my mind. I remind him that there is. Just swap out the stand. He still says no. Okay, we're done. Promised kept. I not only didn't spend a dime there for a year, it lasted over 15 years. And in the last 5+ years, I have only shopped there a handful of times. However, I would go in there anytime I needed to return items. And when I would do returns, it would be a bunch of miscellaneous items and usually be $500, $1,000. I did this for 2 reasons. First, most stores, when they get returns, they are counted as negative sales, regardless of where they are bought. So not only did they not get the sales credit for the things I bought, they got negative sales for the things I returned. The second reason was to fill out the survey on the receipt. I would never ding the cashier who helped me do the returns and would often praise them, but I would always put in the comments my experience with the grill and the manager and why I would not spend money in that store. For the record, I called the store that we bought the grill at and they were more than happy to just replace the stand. Even after I told them about the other store, they seemed confused as to why they said no. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Backstory. I have a 5-year-old daughter with my ex-wife. We broke up about 5 years ago. We had some ups and downs during our marriage. We never argued or fought per se, but we did negotiate a lot with strong emotions and opinions, yet we always managed to find some common ground to stand on together. That's why it kinda caught me by surprise when she told me she wanted a divorce. I cried for a couple days, went fishing, and then started planning on how to figure things out. Because neither of us had enough income at that point to keep our car and/or house, we agreed that I should take care of selling the car and she would get a realtor to start selling our home. Well, turns out I had to do both. Anyway, we had more debt than money, and she tried to leave all the debt to me while she would start from a clean slate. I wouldn't let her, and I made sure everything we owned and every bit of debt would be split evenly. We agreed that our daughter would live with both of us, splitting the time evenly as our daughter had the right to having 2 parents. We promised each other to act civil. This didn't last long. We also had agreed that since our salaries were pretty even, neither of us would pay child support. We also agreed that she would take care of buying most of the clothes, etc. for our kids since she would get the child benefit, about €100 a month here in Finland paid by the government to support raising offspring. After the breakup, she started mail ordering new furniture for herself, even before she had found a new apartment for herself. Kinda obvious, but she really didn't have the money for it either. 2 weeks later, she moved out. A week later, I heard from our kid that she had a new man. I didn't really care, just raised some eyebrows. She would often call in sick to her work, usually BS reasons. And when her boss gave some feedback, she didn't fix her attitude, but instead she just quit. She applied to a school and got in. After about 2 months, she quit the school too and started demanding me to pay child support. We got a professional to weigh in and agreed that I still wouldn't pay a dime to her because she herself had caused her income to collapse. As a goodwill act, I offered to pay for our daughter's insurance. I thought the matter was settled, but then she got pregnant for her new man a few months after our breakup. After our divorce was final, there is a 6 months reconsideration time before the judge calls it, she married her new man. These things empowered her into demanding for money again and again and again. So now that you know what kind of person we're dealing with. The case. Last fall, she yet again demanded money to support our kid. She was working again, and I knew she used our kid as an excuse because she had expressed envy towards my ability to control my finances to a point that even when I had the same amount money, I could eat in restaurants, etc. I told her that if she needed child support for legitimate reasons, I would of course help, but all the expenses would have to be calculated properly to know the right amount she would need. Instead, she demanded I would pay her €200 a month and she would take care of all the expenses regarding our daughter. She didn't have any real reasons for the demand other than her need for control. She had always been someone who wanted to have the last say in things. On top of her demand, this time she threatened to sue me if I didn't pay her. I pretty much laughed at it until I got a message from her lawyer. At that point, I messaged my ex telling her from now on I would only discuss this matter via our lawyers and started looking for a lawyer myself. During the next couple months, things started to look really bad for her case. After getting the papers from the court, I noticed her case was based on false data. She and her lawyer hadn't asked for my income and expenses before they sued me, and she had estimated my income to be a lot more than it actually was. Also, my expenses were estimated to be smaller than actual. At this point, I messaged my ex and asked if she's sure she doesn't want to settle. She didn't, so I decided to go with some malicious compliance and didn't try again. After we both calculated every income and expense of both parties with the help of our lawyers, I, and my lawyer, confirmed that she had enough money to raise our kid. Not only that, it turned out she actually had more money than me for it. Monthly income minus living costs, medicine, etc., etc. I burst out laughing at the absurdity of her case, even more so when she tried to twist things to her favor by sending false evidence to us and the judge, which we noticed instantly. A couple days go by and my lawyer calls me. She had gotten a call from my ex's lawyer saying he had noticed my ex is lying and the whole case is based on lies and the lawyer wants to settle. It looked like my MC wouldn't go through, until my lawyer got a message that for some reason they won't settle after all. Game on. The judgment. We went to court. The judge was annoyed but composed. He asked my ex's lawyer about their demands. The lawyer started by saying, "First, I'm going to tell a bit of the backstory," and the judge cut him off, telling him to just state the demands. After a few seconds of silence, the lawyer told the judge, "No demands." The judge was both dumbfounded and livid, asking, "Then why are we here?" To which my lawyer said something along the lines of, "That's what we're asking too." Then the judge asked my ex's lawyer, "To be clear, didn't you want to settle?" And the lawyer sheepishly told the judge that my ex wouldn't agree to settle. They were so embarrassed, it was so glorious. Like some kind of divine karma being served right at my Karen of an ex. The judge ordered us to go to a meeting room for 20 minutes and to come back with a settlement agreement. Because she had more money, we negotiated that she would pay for our kids' hobbies, insurance, etc. to compensate for the difference. The judge verified it, and my party left the courtroom very happy. My ex, on the other hand, was balancing between being angry and embarrassed. The fallout. A couple weeks ago, my ex demanded that we would make changes to the schedule on how our kid would swap homes. I declined, saying we have an agreement. She threatened to sue me, to which I just reminded her about the last time she wanted to get what she wants by suing me, asking if she really wants to do it again. She got mad, and I just ignored it. About a week ago, she sent me a message saying that she had a fight with her husband. Police were called because she attacked him and she wanted a divorce. The police had to inform Child Protective Services since there were kids present, mine included. Basically, her whole life has gone down the drain. 2 kids to different fathers, 2 divorces before she has even turned 30, a lot of debt and expenses, and looks like our kid will be spending the majority of her time at my place, which is what our kid has wanted for the past 2-ish years. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.